Hello, everybody. After a couple of week break because of strange things like elections and tropical storms, we are back on Tuesday Night Live. It's Rick and Brett, and we have a supremely special guest, an old friend of ours who actually just really bothered me because she said she's in practice 38 years, which means it looked like you started when you were 4, which really, the fact that you look younger than me is just not sitting well. I'm not digging it, but I'm going to go with it. So, Claudia, thank you so much for joining us. We miss you. We miss hugging you and seeing you in person.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us with Chiro Destiny.
It's a pleasure, Rick and Brett, to be here and just to be a part of your tribe and just to be able to kind of share great ideas and fellowship as if we're in one room together.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's take it back a little bit so people get to know you. I know you're we call you the queen of pediatric chiropractic. We were laughing before how you wrote a book. You said it's in your 3rd edition. I still have the book from many years ago. It's been just a keepsake on our mantle. We use it all the time. But tell us a little bit about the beginnings for you. What I remember going back to that Teaneck, New Jersey seminar was, I believe your father was a chiropractor first, right? I know your mother got help through chiropractic, and that inspired you. And I think you had a brother or sister, maybe both, that got into chiropractic as well. So let's go back to that experience from your father and then how you got into pediatric chiropractic, and we can get into the whole philosophy after that.
Yeah. So my dad was an engineer before he became a chiropractor, and my mom had this horrific low back pain, and so nobody could help her in medicine. And so somebody just said, why don't you go see the chiropractor? And so my mom couldn't walk anymore, and she had children from 5 under to a newborn baby. And so my parents, being immigrants from Switzerland, basically went to somebody they had no idea who was, and he x-rayed, examined her, adjusted my mom, and within 6 weeks, my mom could walk again. And so they moved to Arizona. My mother had another relapse. But the difference with the second chiropractor that my parents went to was he actually educated on the x-rays about that this was an older problem, and it kind of explained the x-rays really thoroughly. And my dad was so fascinated by it. At age 39, he went back to chiropractic college in California, Cleveland College at that time. And that changed our lives around. I mean, we were poor when Dad went to school. We were, pork and beans like for years. But we knew that if Dad could graduate, he could help others to save Mom's life. So we were children, all 8 and younger, and we decided if Dad could do it, we could do it, and we'd all practice together. So my sister Susie's a chiropractor, my brother Daniel's a chiropractor. We practiced together in Fresno, and my mom, up to age 88. Has been, she was our office manager. So she just retired a couple of years ago. And so that's been our chiropractic lifestyle, get adjusted, clean eating, sleep well, positive attitude. And when we were raised going to seminars, so we were always had the chiropractic influence. And so what interesting happened, Brett, was when I went to chiropractic college, I noticed that people were living the lifestyle. And so it was a shock to me. And I'm thinking, it was very different. And all I knew when I got out of chiropractic college is that I was very interested in growing a family wellness practice. So within 2-3 years, I had a blow up practice for all families, 2-3 generations, and just doing how I was raised as a child. I wanted to give families in my community that experience. And so it was so big. And a girlfriend of mine, Judy Forster from Calgary, we decided together, because women at that time weren't teaching seminars. You could teach a CAs down a dark, dirty hallway, but you couldn't, there was no platform for women.
Right.
And so we just said, well, the hell with that, we'll create our own platform. So we took a year to put a conference together. So we actually, Judy and I, I think there's a category called Family Wellness Chiropractic. That's our line. We drew it in the sand 35 years ago. It's our profession's been building upon it, but we taught seminars, and then I took a leave of absence from seminars at Rick and Brett, and I moved to helping Larry Webster grow the ICPA. So I created the ICPA certification program with it, served on the board and taught for 20 plus years. And then I thought, and I did a book in between there. And then I thought it's time to go back to teach seminars, because I really, really wanted to be around people in family wellness. And during that time too, I started mentoring doctors and just exclusively having to grow a preconception, prenatal, postnatal, family wellness. And so I have some of my doctors have been with me now 18 years, just evolving with me because I'm still evolving in practice. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I've done for 30 plus years. Yeah.
You know, it's funny because
Hey,
you.
by the way, we're not working hard enough, clearly.
Right.
You got to keep up.
By the way, I've been meaning to talk to you about that, Brett. No, to me, it's always, you know, just to put it into context, especially, you know, Brett and we've been coaching now for 12 to 15 years, but in the seminar world and in the practice management and personal growth world since since I'm a little kid and Brett early in practice. And we, especially during this COVID time, have seen the confusion and seen the doubt and seen the fear. And right out of the box, for you to have influenced as many chiropractors as you have, as well as how many patients and community members that you have, you're still just as enthusiastic as you were 30 years ago. I want to jump through this more. Get adjusted by you like right now because you could still see how much you love it. Where does your energy come from to continue to love it?
Yeah, you know what? It's my love of the fact that I'm so honored and blessed that I can change and alter somebody's life through just a power, the simplicity of adjustment. I mean, just even giving a baby their first adjustment, or, you know, I have a diaper to diaper practice because my dad is still practicing after 50 years. So they're the newborns to the geriatrics. So I have, you know, and that joy of any age, it doesn't matter. And just putting the hands on for that adjustment and just knowing what I'm doing, that connection of the adjustment and the release of it's a release of just, I get to give a little bit of me to you through the touch and direction of an adjustment and knowing the body will heal itself. And then on top of it, if I'll educate them, take that powerful 5 to 8 minutes, whatever time people take with their patients. And if I can impart just one little wellness thing, and then you take it home, I feel like I've thrown a big, not pebble in the pond of water. I'm just throwing boulders in because we're splashing it all over. And so I get the moment of education, and I know I can change lives with the families coming in. So you're right. I can't think. I don't think I'll ever retire just because it's just too much fun. You know.
So what would you recommend? So we coach a lot of chiropractors out there. And a lot of chiropractors, I think, from our experience, especially the male chiropractors, it seems to be, again, I could be wrong, but my observation is they're the ones most tentative to want to see and adjust and take care of pediatrics, children, and so forth. What kind of advice would you give to them in terms of maybe not starting a pediatric practice, but incorporating that into it if they want more of a family, more of a wellness type of practice?
Right. I mean, the easiest thing is if you have a patient that's coming in, and if she's female, that's your demographics for going a family wellness practice, then it would be through, you know, maybe education or literature in your office that it's just a simple invitation, you know, at any time if you would love to have your children screened, we just do that complimentary in our practice just to see if they need to have chiropractic care. Because you can't run around say all kids need chiropractic care because although I believe all kids need to have chiropractic care, we can't say that in the adjusting room. And so any of our colleagues simply just by of sharing that, you know, with the possibility of just getting a screening and then checking the posture, and then, you know, and they could do it with the child in the room and the parent, you know, holding up their iPhone, and then they do the head, tail, shoulders, and all the rest. And so you can actually give a mini report of findings on video so they can share it with their spouse at home. Because that's the other one, is that the female mom may want to bring the kids in, but dad says, Papa Bear said, hell no, my kid's not going to
all the time, right? Yeah.
And so it's just pointing it out. And the other thing too is making sure that they realize that it's not like you have to see this kid on high frequency care like maybe the adult is receiving. So maybe it's checking the child once a month to see if they need to be adjusted, and if they do, and so you get them into just like a wellness routine. So that could be easy. And if some of our docs need to brush up on technique, there are a lot of seminars out there. ICPA has seminars out there. If they attend my seminar, First Adjustment, I do 4 hours of technique on Sunday. And then we're releasing actually a seminar September 2021. And I'm bringing out 4 master adjusters, Patrick Montgomery for Logan technique, Bogle for toggle for pregnancy and children. And then we've got pelvis with Carol Phillips on the pregnant women and myself. So we're going to put on like 16 hours. So sometimes what holds some of the guys back is the technique of how do I use, like if you've got Papa Bear hands, just what you have to do is adapt your hands, your finger size to the child size. And anybody within a week or two, you could be an amazing light adjuster on these kids.
Fantastic.
So I'm just gonna drop the bomb on you right out of the early box, because I've gotten this probably 10 or 15 times already in the last 2 days. There's so much news right now about these 2 vaccines coming. So I'm sure you're getting it in your practice, and I'm sure you have a philosophy, as do we. Mm-hmm. How do you handle these conversations with, as you would say, Mama Bear and Papa Bear, on when they say, Doc, not even necessarily for or against, but what do you think about this specific vaccine? And what do you think about possibly, and I believe with California, you're dealing with mandatory vaccines.
Right. Yeah. I think where that would come, and that's a tricky one. So if your state allows it, mainly it's Canadians who can't do it in their province, but always having a lending library, letting others, particularly medical doctors who have turned on the vaccines in general, put them in your lending library so people realize there's medical doctors like Mendelsohn did decades ago about the medical, the orthodox medical approach. And so this really current thing, I said, well, you know what, don't be the first in line, because you can't argue. I mean, I know personally I'm not going to have it, but I just said, well, maybe you wouldn't want to be first in line. I think maybe it's the first responders, all those, maybe the ones that are going to get the first line, line of vaccination. But maybe by the time it's all over, you'll just look at it like it's a flu. So what if it was just a flu? And basically the pediatric population isn't the population group that's most highly at risk. The most high risk groups are obese people, and diabetics. So maybe they're the ones first in line, but we're in a population group that we're less likely because we have a healthier lifestyle. So I have right now, probably 80% of my practice would never even think about taking the vaccine, but I have some people who are newer, not wellness minded as much. But my medical doctors and my nurses in my practice that I care for, they're not going to take the vaccine because they don't want to be first in line, and they don't want to be told what to do as well. And so, but it's tricky. And I have some of them, I just say, look, you'll know what's right for your life, what's right for your family. And then you've got to make that choice, to put the chemical in your body or not to put the chemical in. So I kind of leave it freedom of choice. But majority of my practice, I would say 80, 90%, I have no way that they want those chemicals. And that's why they're coming for regular adjustments, eating clean. We're working on fitness in their life, and they'll do anything, take better supplements than go the route of the vaccination. And
I'm assuming you would say the same thing for the, younger kids as well, for just vaccines in general, right?
That's correct. Right. Yeah. And that's, some people, by the time we meet them, their kids have already been exposed to the vaccine. And that's, but the scary thing is that most of those kids, and again, I have no science behind it, but as a practicing chiropractor, my non-vaccinated kids are healthier, less asthma, less allergies, less learning disabilities. My vaccinated group, who meet me later on in life, asthma, allergies, learning disabilities. So I have 2 population groups, wellness and those who've been chemically altered. And I have the chemically altered group, it's harder to stabilize their adjustments, and they have to really work harder. And so, so I have a following of the crunchies, the wellness, and then I have the other group, and it's a distinctive difference. Yeah.
Right. It's awesome.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was Johns Hopkins, there was a study came out this week that even 1 dose of antibiotics within that first year or 2 of life, and they were showing, and they finally not only linked it to asthma and allergies, right, but also finally to ADHD and to some of the more neurological and behavior disorders. So these
are antibiotics, not vaccines. Right.
Yeah, not the vaccine.
Antibiotics, right.
Same idea.
Yeah, but at least now you're starting to show that early onset of chemistry into the body.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So by the time kids are exposed by age 6 to antibiotics, studies have come out that says basically there's a 50% increased probability that they'll have asthma. And then also there was a study in New Zealand, which they use a lot of antibiotics for some reason with their kids, that when you're exposing them those first few years of life, they are more likely to be an obese patient later on because it's changing their biology, their chemistry. So you're setting them up for asthma. I see it in allergies, and now they're linking it to obesity, the use of antibiotics.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I want to go in another direction, if you don't mind, because as Brett said, you have some people that are just afraid to put their big meat hooks on little kids. Right. So one of it is the technique, and Kimberly just put up in the chat right here the link for the adjusters seminar for next September for you. So if any of you are interested in that, please click on that link and learn more about it. But the secondary side is sort of the business side of chiropractic, where people, chiros that you know, they don't know how to do a family wellness care plan because of insurance and not insurance. And I've got this copay and this one's that deductible, and how can they afford it? So, again, without, or go as in detail as you'd like, but how do you handle those conversations with chiropractors to educate them how to do compliant care plans to get families to stay under lifetime?
And family care as a general rule.
Right.
How do you do it in your office? How do you recommend it? Because I think that's a big sticking point.
Yeah. First thing, what we want to do is be compliant with what our state law is. Like, so for the state of California, we're allowed to have a cash program, meaning you pay cash at the time of visit. You're allowed to be discounted, or you are allowed in our state of California also to have a hardship. So wellness and hardship is protected in our state. So first thing every doctor does is understand what's the law in your state. That's number one. Number two is that it's really hard. Can you disprove hardship? So I believe that a lot of people who are even fearful, if they would check in, that maybe probably in many states a hardship would be allowed, because it's not like you're running a multi-million-dollar practice, fraudulently billing out Medicare or something like that, and there's going to be some kind of weird audit. I mean, so first off is that more doctors probably could practice with using hardship. And then there are different businesses out there within our profession, like preferred chiropractic, PCD, preferred chiropractic doctors, Chiro Health USA, so they could create the triune of the relationship between patient, chiropractic office, and the insurance company, which is that particular group. So there's other safe ways of going that about. But I believe also to look at it as I call it the hybrid practice, that you for those who your state allows, or your community, that there's good still insurance reimbursement, and people really work hard for their insurance. To just go only strictly cash, I think it takes longer to build a practice, and people, their choice to pay somebody cash or go right down the block and use their insurance, they're going to pick the guy or gal who does the insurance. So I believe the hybrid practice of the future is that for those who have, if this insurance is still healthy, you do that until chiropractic care for the relief care. The moment they go maintenance or wellness, then they move into your wellness plan. But the children of your patient should already go into the hybrid wellness practice. So they should not try to, let's say, submit billing or all the rest. Just say, you know what, your insurance doesn't really recognize wellness and prevention. They'll pay dentistry care for your kid, but they won't do chiropractic that way. And we don't want to feel like we're in socialized medicine, somebody dictating, well, you have a right to exactly provide the kind of care you want for your children. And so, like I tell my parents, I said, look, if you would have had chiropractic care as a child, you wouldn't have the spine and nervous system we're working on now. Please set your generation up. Don't let your kids grow up to have what you're, dealing with. And it can be very affordable.
Well, I'm going to jump in for a second, because my belief is, having done this for so many years, and I've done it both ways. When I was first in practice, I'm going to take us on a step back. My belief was, well, a family can't afford care at my regular fees, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to create these wellness fees, this wellness care plan. So I was almost giving it away, where the family could come in and each person got, I discounted it more. So by the time they got to like their third kid, it was almost free.
You paid them
$10 or whatever it was. It was crazy, right? And I just remember I felt at some point, having gone to so many seminars and doing all the research, I said, I'm so devaluing what we do. So my message now is, if you're a chiropractor out there and you really believe and you see the results, such as what you're talking about right now. You have this great family practice, and you just said, boy, if that person, didn't wait and they got, adjusted from a child all the way up as an adult, their lives would be completely different. And I believe when we come from strength and we say to them, hey, because of what we do, we're changing lives, right? And so there's so much value in doing that. I don't personally recommend doing that anymore. I recommend, as you said, children typically need less care. Newborn babies or infants especially need less care. It's not going to be, typically, unless there's something seriously neurologically going on, which is typically not the case. But so I think it should be at our normal, regular fee. And it's about educating the patient to the value of what we do. And I understand not everybody's going to recognize the value, see the value in it. But if you've done a great job educating your patients along the way, especially pregnant moms or couples or whatever, when we start getting to the children and they start to see the value, I believe people will pay for the value. I'm not saying it's easy, right? And not everyone will do it, but more and more people will. And I think we have to come from strength, right? And certainty and confidence. And I think that's the message this profession needs to stand on more and more, in my opinion.
Yeah. And if the doctors are educating in the office and so forth, and then, and even if somebody has a budget in, depending on their family income,
yes.
Then you have to be sensitive to, to be honest with, they're going to, between chiropractic care and cable, they're going to pick cable over you folks. So I just get over it. That it's entertainment 24/7. And so somewhere we have to be able to see, how would they budget it in? Would I rather see somebody every 6 weeks for a lifetime, even though I would have preferred maybe adjusting them twice a month? But what about if I'm adjusting them every 6 weeks for the next 20 years until they're a young adult? Well, I'd pick every 6 weeks. And if that's what the family could afford to pay, versus, maybe my preferences would be maybe more frequently, you just have to keep educating them, but it's an ongoing relationship so that they don't come for a few visits, that, looking back in their, back in their rearview mirror of their life, that they're seeing these babies growing up to be young adults. And because I've been long enough in practice, is that now my babies have grown up, they're getting married, and I get to do preconception care with this generation. And so my babies are coming in to see me now. So that, I think, comes from a very high education driven, very philosophical practice.
And you're right. So you said something interesting. You didn't say decrease your fee so they can come in more frequently. You said if they choose to, they can come in less frequently, but your fee is still your fee, which I agree with, unless it's a true hardship. Listen, we don't turn anybody away for care. It's not black and white. I get that. What you said is, I agree with you 100%. But I want chiropractors to know, stop giving away your services and teach the value about what we do. And as you do that more and more, and as you said, if they have to come a little bit less, come a little bit less. If they're going to choose that over, or your cable over you or whatever, that's their choice. But at least they're coming and so forth. I agree.
So it's an option. So it's another hybrid. I think there's not just a right answer. I think, the fact that, it could come in strength, full fee and all the rest, but maybe that practice will not see the families as frequently. Another practice might choose then to say, I want a family plan. I'd like for you to come in twice a month or once a month. And then they do have a fee set aside that's still honoring to the chiropractor. But you can't spend a half hour or an hour with that family. You have to be very quick with your care. So in some practices, and I would probably fall under that category, is I have very high volume. I mean, I make a very good income, but I go high volume, seeing people shorter periods of time, and still end up with a very good lifestyle. So I think there's a spectrum there, but I know, but nobody should be coming in for free. That's important.
Agreed.
So, you've said it multiple times, and I'd like to get a little more specific if you can. You said the word education almost from the first sentence, which I believe chiropractors think they're doing a good job of educating because they sit in front of the X-ray view box on an ROF for 47 minutes and try to turn the patient into a radiologist, which they have no idea what they're looking at anyway, and they're giving you the chiropractic head fake. But you said education. So are there key linchpin things that that if these families understood, it flips them into getting it and understanding the necessity of lifetime wellness?
Yeah, I think, one of it is, to try to have a core of information that, resources for people to go out to. Like, for example, even though we're right now, as we're speaking, I'm updating my website. So my product site is not up for another maybe 2 weeks. But we do, like, for example, for chiropractors, we do like a monthly wellness family newsletters. We actually have it personalized it so the practice can actually email it to their patient base. They can print it off. And so it has a front and back, and it's really insightful resources from pregnancy to wellness to nutrition. So we do a monthly geared towards the family. And then we do the same thing where this is an example where you print this off, you put it in the office. And so what you do is you use very content driven, because you're always going to have to change it up. If you just use the same thing over and over again, people are going to be very bored by material. So in my practice, I know they would be bored. And so I create education on a monthly basis. And so so about 2 weeks from now, people could poke around on my website and they'll see that kind of stuff. But it could be newsletters, printed materials around the office. So visually you're stimulating the practice. So it's in my adjusting rooms, and it's my reception room. I have a rack of like 24 of my past wellness family newsletters in it. I actually, to be honest with you, that's a moneymaker. It goes out so much and so forth that I probably make at least $50,000 worth of referrals from my wellness family newsletter past issues. People are taking it in the reception room, either giving it to a friend or a family member. And they say, oh, you're the wellness doctor. You're the one with all that information. Somebody gave it to me. And so I have found that kind of education has been I just decided, hey, I've got past issues, they're great. And so we put them out there. And so I think this ongoing education, and a lot of times as a chiropractor, you don't have the time to do that kind of writing. It's a lot of work. Yeah.
For sure. Tell us some of the things. So when a new patient starts in your office, they're new to chiropractic, never been to a chiropractor before, they've heard certain things, they were referred to you because they heard you're the wellness doctor. What are some of the conversations that you're having with them from day one in terms of inculcating them into the chiropractic lifestyle in your office?
Yeah. Well, I think it starts that we first have to meet what their needs are, and they came in for relief. So you have two kinds of patients. You have the relief patient that comes in often on Monday morning to somebody who has no concept of family wellness, but they were referred to somebody. And so the first thing is you have to live up to the expectation is, can you care for me? And I think, what's really important is what you show people, you tell them. So the X-ray, surface EMG, or posture analysis is so important to show chronicity in an adult lifetime. And then I think when you build a relationship, once they go through relief and maybe there's some form of correction or wellness, that then the chiropractor is able to translate that through the care of that patient for the next 4 to 8 weeks. That if somebody has too many holes in their bucket, meaning if you're not getting, you have to have a boatload of new patients, like every month, like 30, 40, 50 new patients. I'm going, what the hell are you doing with those patients? I mean, you are somewhere missing out on the education part of it, because you actually, if you're I think if you're a master at your game, you need less new patients because you have less holes in the bucket. And actually people are, and you get hopefully more VIP referrals, because people want to hang out in a practice like yours. So every visit, like what you say in the adjusting room matters, not weather, not politics. You just have to go back to, how much sleep are you doing? And then if they bring up, well, I don't sleep really well because of my kids. And then, things can maybe be brought up, and then, like I said, it's the educational material that I use that as my stage props, basically. If I want to play the Lion King, I'm not going to have Shakespeare on my stage of life. And so I actually stage my reception room, my adjusting rooms, content of information. So yes, we have to get them well in relief, but during that process, can you educate them about, maybe it went back to their childhood, and that's why you need correction care, and then the possibility of maybe someday doing an exam on their kids. But that shouldn't be pushed on like the first 2 weeks of care. That is stalking people, and that's really, people don't appreciate it. Yeah. And you have to earn the right to actually have the honor to screen their kids, and that's what it takes. It may take months before you have that relationship built.
So the name of the game is retention.
Yes.
We hammer that all the time to our brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest challenge that most chiropractors have. They think it's a new patient game, really, and it isn't. It's a retention game. It's a PVA game. It's a capacity game, understanding. And as you just said, we've always said it's more about building relationships, building rapport with the patient, right? Meeting them where they are, knowing what to say and how to say it. Yes, all those are important. But once you get their level of trust, then you can start to build from there. But the challenge that we find in coaching chiropractors is they don't know how to do that visit by visit by visit, almost like this continuum, bringing them along the way from where they are. And like you said, meeting them where they come in with pain, symptoms, and so forth, and then getting them to understand that it's beyond pain and symptoms. It's what about cause, about the nervous system, about innate intelligence, blah, 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 until we can say, okay, now you should be doing this the rest of your life.
That's right. And so it's just, we are going to lose some people because they only want to have relief. So it's being able to read too. If let's say 1 out of 5 people are a potential, what I call the VIP patient, is that your education, your what you're saying in the adjustment room will have more value to that person because they were receptive to your message to begin with. And then you may have 2 that may stay on a little longer for more stabilization, like the idea of correction care. But we just know it's not 100% out of the park. But if everybody just would gain one more, then what we say is then we vertically grow our practices. We grow from then the 2 kids, and then dad comes sooner or later. So we're into vertical growth of practices. And then how do you take that vertical growth and you, in a sense, work with their family tree? And their family tree is who are they related to, other friends and family that are like-minded. And then when their family tree, because they love you now, their family tree is going to easily fall in love with you as well, because for some reason we're deeply connected on a human level beyond an adjustment. They just want to hang out with our stuff.
Well, it's getting to be that time, and we don't have to wrap up right this second because I have one more question to ask, which is, if you had the ear of the profession, that's one side. If you had the ear of chiropractic students, that's another side, right? So you have all of the ear right now of all the chiropractic students or the newly graduated young practitioners, which, as you know, many of these schools do not graduate chiropractors like we know. You know, a lot of it's different, and they're a little disillusioned and they're a little limited in their thinking. What would your message be to the students in school now, or the ones that have just graduated, in terms of enjoying a career like Brett and like myself, and certainly like you've had over these years?
Right. Yeah. While you're in school, try to go to as many seminars as you can. Join the clubs that are like-minded. Like if you are into family wellness, join the pediatric club and get good in your technique. So if you're in school, you got to get your game on adjusting, because that's the one thing. It's your disadvantage when you get out and you don't know how to get results because you don't know how to find a subluxation and fix a subluxation. But the thing is that once you get, if you really want to grow a practice, it is so important, docs, to not look. I mean, some of our younger doctors coming out, they call going to practice, I'm showing up doing my shift. What the hell is a shift? This is not a shift. You're going to practice. You're gonna have a great time. And I'm growing up, I'm doing a shift. Anyway, so you're not gonna shift. Quit wearing hospital pajamas to work. Wear real clothes. And not, I know some that like that because they think they can move, but you look like a technician out there. So that's just my personal feeling after this many years of practicing.
You can hardly notice
that. You don't wear your pajamas to work, you know. And so, and just know it's going to take a while to build a practice. It can take a couple years, but I mean, if you're in a highly more concentrated area, it'll take a while to build your tribe in your community. Don't give up. You know, use coaching programs like yours. Use a coaching program like that, mine. If you're, you know, where do you want to go? And find people who are like-minded. But I want to tell the students and young doctors, look, just because you hang your sign out does not mean that, you know, okay, green light, you're going to be successful in 6 months. It may take us a couple of years, but the joy of it in the long run, don't be burnt out. And here's another thing, don't follow shiny objects. That's the thing that a lot of times, you know, at every seminar, if I believe what the profession is supposed to be doing now, I guess I'm supposed to be lasering off people's fat. What the hell is fat and chiropractic have to do hand in hand? Forget that. So stay on purpose, stay on the mission. adjust spines and nervous system, fall in love with people. And gosh, and if you need a wake-up call, go join some missions group in chiropractic and go adjust 1,000 people in a week. It'll change your belief system because you got all that other crap out of your head. And to show up and do a week of missions, that for those who need a little kick or no, really, I could adjust that many people, believe me, you'll be a better adjuster after an event like that. So, yeah.
And it's funny, you also said, as we were talking before we got on, that well-educated practices don't have these big dips due to the pandemic and COVID, right? In fact, we were talking before, Rick and I, that a lot of our members have actually broken records this year during the pandemic because it's really forced them to be more laser focused and better than what they've been doing. And as you said, the more educated your practice members are, right, you're not going to have these big dips because they get the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's in our practices with my dogs, the most we've dropped was 20 or 25% for about 2 months, depending where they were in the country. Yep. But since May, we've had the best months ever, financially, numbers wise. All the ways I've been talking to my doctors as of this morning, as of end of October, we've had best months ever. I mean, and they know, and then they saw other of their colleagues just driveling away because they didn't show up. They, and they didn't show up in practice, because they were timid or afraid. And I understand one could be timid or afraid, but again, an educated doc who just really is passionate about it. Our practices all grew. That was flat out. Practices can grow even through challenging times.
Absolutely. So in the next, where do you see the profession in the next 5 to 10 years? What are you observing out there in terms of?
Other than I got to go return my fat burning laser.
Other than that, I hear that's not chiropractic.
That's awesome.
I think I've always thought that there's a need for a little divide. I've always thought that those who really didn't fall in love with chiropractic, that they should have left us 30 years ago and become osteopaths. If I had one big wish, I would have separated the profession and said, you really wanted to become a medical doctor, and God bless you to leave, become an osteopath and go that direction. And I really, if I would have loved to versus stay, because a lot of the colleges are not graduating doctors of chiropractic anymore. They're doctors, but they're not knowing how to practice chiropractic. So we only have a handful of schools anymore that you really can only send your kids to. But I'm hopeful. I see this new generation of doctors are really passionate about things. So that gives me hope, but it's the ones that are going out and not practicing chiropractic. That's the one that's the challenge. So my hope is for every chiropractor that is very successful, fall in love, make it your mission to find somebody who doesn't know chiropractic and say, if I could just open their eyes, maybe bring them to a seminar, change people, do something that is almost like a missions work on them. Because there's always somebody that's struggling in your community. If you could reach out and give them some kind of hope. And then, again, it's not like you're adopting them and you're dragging them around, as a barnacle on your hull of your ship, but you never know. Maybe you could change one chiropractor's life. If each one of us changed one. Imagine if 10,000 of us change one chiropractor's life. That's 10,000. We take the game over again. So I believe now it should be in the trenches, saving one other chiropractor and getting them in the game of chiropractic. And that's my hope, in the next 20 years, is save another chiropractor's life by getting them back into chiropractic. And we could double the change in the next 5 years.
That's certainly the mic drop to end on. It's been interesting for us over this last year to transition away from being on the road and, being out and being able to touch all these hundreds and thousands of chiropractors and seminars. And we're doing it same as you. We're doing it virtually. We're doing it grassroots. We're doing it one phone call at a time, one Zoom call at a time. You're obviously as passionate as you've ever been. You're not quitting at all. I know you have Generations program, you have the Adjuster series, you have your 3rd edition of the book coming out. You're in practice, constantly still continuing to adjust and getting your hands on spines. And again, for those of you out listening, if you don't have to ever listen to what anyone says, just observe their behavior. And, Claudia, you've been just a missionary and a visionary for chiropractic all these years. We miss you. We can't wait to hug. We love you. We can't thank you enough for your time. We know you worked all day, but thank you again. We look forward to seeing you. And for those listening, make sure to just follow anything that Claudia says and do. Just follow blindly, and you're going to be happy you did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
Many blessings, guys. Have a good evening.
You've been terrific. Thank you so much. And for all people that are listening out there, use Claudia as a resource. If you need coaching, you need mentorship, you're stuck in practice, you want to get to the next level, give us a call. Let us help you. You see, we have all these great leaders on week after week. This is to help our profession. But if you're stuck and you need coaching, you want to get to the next level, give us a call, Chiro Desk, and we'd love to help you. And as Claudia said, let's build this profession one chiropractor at a time.
Good night, everybody.
Take care. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.